So, how exactly do you play a solo? That's a question that so many of my emerging improvisers ask. How do you improvise? What's it all about there? And of course, we have advice for them that it includes learn the chords, learn the arpeggios, learn the scales, practice arpeggios, follow the melody, do all those kinds of things. And I think perhaps those are helpful ideas. Those are good clues. But there are more clues that can be had by taking a solo apart and breaking it down to its basic elements. And if you do that, I think you begin to find that every solo contains the same or similar structure. Similar ideas are expressed within a solo. Okay. Now I'm an R&B, funk, blues, rock and roll sax player by trade, and I teach people how to play the saxophone. The straight ahead jazz solo, that 64 bar organization of thoughts and ideas is going to be a little bit different than what I'm going to talk to you about today. I do have notes right here. And the rock and roll solo, your basic rock and roll solo, is a little bit different as well, in that it tends to be shorter, and it tends to be a process by which you are handed a bundle of joy, and your job is to ramp the energy up and hand it back, right? Quite often as saxophone players, we're working with guitar players. And guitar players like to set that volume at 11 when it's their turn to solo. And they typically ramp it right up to the top fret. And they make that face. We don't get to make that face. It makes our solos seem inauthentic? No, not at all. But what I'm saying is that the rock and roll solo tends to be a little bit more high energy and vastly shorter, so you have to make your statement very quickly. R&B solos quite often depend more on tone. You don't have time, like you would in a jazz solo, to develop an idea and run with it, extrapolate it, take it apart, rebuild it, put it back together, and hand it to the next soloist, all right? So what I have here for you, that aside, is the elements that every solo in our idiom must have. Again, rhythm and blues, funk, blues, the longer rock and roll chorus, in which you get several of them. So the first chorus, we command a listener's attention by flowing out of either the previous solo, the vocalist, or the ensemble with a simple pattern. This is where you keep it simple. This is a simple pattern that mirrors the melody of the song, all right? Use of a dramatic device here is optional. What is a dramatic device, you say? Well, that's a great question. Dramatic device, you say starting up in an altissimo tone and coming back down, or using, say, the cannonball shake, where you climb up your saxophone while you're hitting the side keys with your right hand, the palm keys. We can talk about that another time too. Growling, any of those kinds of things. That's optional. Dramatic devices are optional. They're cool to have in your pocket, by the way. But what you must have as you begin your solo is rhythmic definition. Rhythmic definition is so important. I mean, I think it trumps tone, to be honest with you. Rhythmic definition and power, rhythmic power under every note you play. This is where we assure the audience that they're in good hands and that it's safe to listen to the musical story that we're about to tell, okay? Simple ideas. In the first chorus, keep it simple, all right? Have you ever heard the rule of three? Rule of three, play one idea, repeat that idea, and then the third time around, dismantle it a little bit, right? So obviously if you're going to do 1, 2, and by the time you get to 3, you want 1 and 2 to be relatively simple and melodically based so that you can maybe put some of you into that. Space is also a real good idea. In the first chorus, don't play all of your cards here, okay? Don't play all of your cards. We hear that a lot in emerging soloists. who don't just automatically set in, about to fill all of the space with all of the notes that they can play. I know we've all been there, right? And you can kind of tell when somebody does that they don't really know what to do, and they're terrified of space. Space is your friend here, okay? You play an idea, stop, repeat the idea, stop, let the band play a little bit, and then come back in and add a little bit of a, melodic convention. Change the idea up just a little bit, okay? Second chorus, if you're lucky to get a second chorus, change up the energy. This is where you change and how do you do that? It's a great question. Change up the energy with your articulation, your breathing. Play louder, all right? Go up an octave. Now, I'm not a big believer in starting in the low octave, especially if you're funking it, you're rhythm and bluesing it, you're playing a blues, so, because you're going to get lost in the band, right? The band, think about all those other, keyboard, guitar, bass, they're all kind of in the bottom to the mid-range, and if you're on a tenor sax, for example, and you're the bottom range, you're buried in that. So we want to be up in the, the mid-range of the horn, octave and above, right? Well, we can go up to the palm keys at this point here. This again must contain the second chorus. Got to have a melodic reinvention to keep a listener's enthusiasm. No listener likes to get lost in the middle of a story. They like to know where they are, but it's really important for them to know where you are, okay? And they need to know that you know where you are. So we'll touch base, we'll refer back to the melody, we'll reinvent it, but we'll let them know that we're still on the same page here, okay? Also, now here's another consideration, and you'll hear this in solos as you begin to take solos apart and you understand what's going on. Let me move the camera just a little bit here. All right, there you go. You want to put some hot little complex lick or a quote, right? That's for your band's entertainment, the guys that you're playing with, the men and women that you're playing with in this band. You want to do a little something here that kind of tells them, hey, this is for you. This is something that's for you. Don't make a steady diet of that. And I think that's an unfortunate problem with a lot of straight ahead jazzers who get many choruses or bebop cats. And again, I don't want to make this a blanket statement, but so much of what I hear there is musicians trying to impress each other, and the audience gets left out. So in our line of work here, what we're talking about, our pop music solo, stick a little quote in there, stick a little something cool in there, or a line that shows that you're bad, right? And that you can play, that'll just, the band can kind of, cool, yeah, that's cool. But that's just one, little lick, all right? Third chorus, you're going to ramp it way up in octave and energy, if you're lucky to get a third chorus. Altissimo is okay here, right? This is kind of where, if you got it, you can use it. If you don't, I don't know. But if you got it, it's not required, but altissimo is kind of cool on a third chorus. It can also be kind of cliche. You can establish, in place of that, a repetitive pattern, right? And you can blast it over and over and over all through that third chorus, as long as your air holds out, right? Effects, really cool dramatic effects, like flutter tonguing, growling, circular breathing, anything like that to ramp up the mood and the energy. Kind of get the point here, right? First chorus is here, second chorus is here, and the third chorus just takes the roof off, right? If you've got chops to do that. Ramp up the mood and the intensity and the energy for your audience, and to hand it off to the next soloist, whoever that is in your band, okay? So there you go. Those are some elements that, as we dissect other solos and take them apart and listen to them, I find that almost every solo contains those elements, right? And it doesn't matter that it's a saxophone or a trombone or a trumpet, guitar, whatever. They tend to contain those elements. And if you disagree or agree, or you have any other ideas, Send them to me. Email is best. davegoodsax@gmail.com. davegoodsax@gmail.com. So anyway, I hope to hear from you. And if you have any ideas for further mini master classes like this one, again, just send them to me in an email. All right. Get back to that soloing. Have a great time. That's the whole point of this. Have some fun while you're doing it. All right. Talk to you again.